Welcome to Retire Hour, the weekly show discussing income planning, investing, tax planning, estate planning, and Medicare. Complete retirement education. Hear from our financial advisors, CPA, estate planning attorney, and Medicare advisor every week. This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you keep up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm Joshua Cicora, your host for this week, and we've got a full show for you. Stay tuned for the back half of the episode where we talk to healthcare, estate planning, and tax advisors about what's going on in each of their separate industries. But to kick off today's show, I've got Larry Clefcorn in the studio with me. Larry, with President Trump now back in office and his administration wanting to just start cutting spending across the board, what does that mean for Social Security, Medicare, all these different things that retired people rely on?
Well, we, to my knowledge, we haven't heard of any cuts to those programs. I would find it difficult, personally, for them to make changes without some kind of legislative action now. We all know that Washington can, even though it's east, to us, it can be the wild, wild west. And, the old saying is they can do whatever they want to do. But, it can be unsettling, especially to those people where it makes up the majority of what they have to live on from month to month. And so I completely understand any angst that they might have. I don't know. What do you think?
Like you said, we haven't seen anything specific come out on those topics. I know they're talking about cutting personnel across the board. That's part of the reason why they've had that, they've eliminated that work from home option for federal employees, is because they're trying to trim back the federal workforce, which, while not impacting people's retirements directly, if you're signing up for Social Security, I suspect that'll make it tougher to get that claim processed. If you're dealing with Medicaid, I can see that being harder to get on board since that's a federally administered program. I think we're going to see some changes, if not on the amount of benefits received, I think we'll see some changes on the administrative headache that goes along with these issues. I know we're already seeing that on the IRS side. Here we're getting into tax filing season. The IRS has, it's unlike other federal agencies, it's on a permanent hiring freeze. Mm-hmm. I've seen where they had offered people employment and they had to rescind those offers because of these changes, which means that if you're having tax problems, you get some letters from the IRS, or you've got things you need their help to deal with, it's going to be harder to get those dealt with. And I kind of wonder if that's what people are going to be seeing with the changes that have already been announced.
Right. Yeah. And I can't help but always kind of gravitate back towards people who are already receiving benefits about any changes they may have. I do. I feel for those people and the anguish that they might be having. But I think we've said it a lot of different ways over the past few years on this program, is that changes are more likely to happen to those who are younger. And I realize that if we're doing spending cuts for right now, that's not going to help that situation. But it might be a motivating factor that they will do something knowing it will help in the future when we see these type of restraints happening. And those people who are currently receiving, I've heard some put it this way, it's like if you start messing with their money, you're messing with the money, the income of the most faithful voting bloc there is.
And I know, I mean, when we've been met with people in the conference room, I'll often say, well, what's a politician's number one job they feel? And
That's
it's
right.
getting reelected.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you mess with what's that super reliable voting block, then I don't know that you're going to get to go back for another go around. Right. But to take that into a place where people can do something, if you are thinking about retiring, I have to imagine this just doubles down on the importance of having that plan. Mm-hmm. And that when people come in and meet with you where they're thinking about moving into retirement, one of the first things you start talking about is these custom-made plans.
Right. And of course, anytime we're making custom-made plans that involve income planning for people.
Yeah.
Not everyone needs or wants income planning. They figure they got that taken care of themselves. But those who want it, Social Security is one of the first things that we establish. This is, they bring their statement in from their online profile that they can pull their statement right down from. And we always need to know that first because that's a basis and that's lifelong. Mm-hmm. And we hope that it's secure, because it has that word in it, Social Security. And of course, a lot of times people talk about Medicare is probably more in the crosshairs than Social Security even.
That's right, because those healthcare costs can experience a higher level of inflation than what the general economy does. So yeah, those costs, those programs cost the government more than what Social Security will. So that will be a much more sensitive place, I would think.
Right.
If you find yourself at a loss with what to do for your retirement, if you've been putting it off and putting it off, because all this stuff just is so complicated, don't put it off any longer. If you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call to see what you might be missing in your retirement plans, reach out to us right now, 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the entire Market Advisory Group team. When we come back, we'll be talking with Kimberly Sixkiller. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly radio show where we talk about the ever-changing retirement landscape. And we've got Kimberly Sixkiller, life and long-term care advisor with Market Advisory Group, here in studio with us. Kimberly, long-term care is often an overlooked issue in retirement, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that so many people think of long-term care with a negative connotation, and they assume, I'll just worry about it when I get older. I'll worry about it when I actually need to go into a nursing home. And the truth is, you need to start thinking about that early on, so when life happens, you're not scrambling to get something done.
All right. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm the tax advisor, so I don't really know a whole lot about long-term care insurance, but I have to think if you're at a point where you're like, I need to go into a nursing home because I need long-term care, it's really kind of too late to get that kind of insurance, right?
It really can be in many cases. So when you hear people talk about long-term care, I actually like to refer to it more as extended care. The truth is that care is about extending your life, right? We're not talking about help with the medical situations that need to take place. Medicare, Medicaid, they help with those things so much. Long-term care is really more about helping with your active daily living. So the things that you need to do for every day, think of having to get in and out of a tub, help with bathing, help with eating. There are 6 active daily livings that we're really trying to get people help with, regardless of whether they're age 17 or 75. And so that's what we're honing in to make sure when life happens, you have somebody to help you with that.
All right. So like I said, I don't really know a whole lot about this. So what do they need to make decisions around as they get into this? Okay, yeah, my folks had to go into nursing care for a while. That was expensive. How do I make decisions on how do you even go down that path? Like I myself don't even know what questions to ask to get going down there.
Yeah, so the first thing you should do is really have a conversation with your loved ones about, should something occur where I can no longer take care of myself without assistance, what do I want that game plan to look like? And what I mean by that, Josh, is, for example, for you and your wife, if something were to happen to you that you guys are going to need help with you being able to maybe be mobile or be able to eat or bathe, do you want someone that's going to come into the home and help with that? Are you looking to relocate to a place that you have someone to help you on site, but you're not fully in a care center? The first thing is, what do I want out of it? And then the second question is, who do I want helping me, right? Do I have grown children, close family members, someone who's going to help me get that care? Or am I going to need to pay someone? Do I need to pay for some kind of provider that's going to help with those things? So those are the first two things in the decision. And then okay, where do I need to go from here?
Gotcha. So it's what do I want? And then whatever I want, what does it cost? And then that leads to, well, what level of insurance you need, right?
Absolutely. So there's some great sites that can help you with the average cost of care, right? It ranges anywhere here from $5,000 to $10,000 annually, depending on what level of care you're getting. And what we like to really do is sit down with the client and say, should something happen, this is the plan that you want to have. Here's what it would cost. How do we facilitate any gap in your financial situation? And then also, how do we make sure that you have the right resources in place? For example, you have a plan of action, just like our lawyers would help make sure you have a will in place. Do you have a plan of care in action? And that's everything from your medical power of attorney, right, on the legal side, to whether or not you want to go to certain care homes. We want to work with you on that. And then also just making sure that your family understands, okay, these are the things that I prefer. Now, how are we going to use our assets to take care of these needs? Because long-term care is not necessarily an asset problem, right? It's a money issue.
Right. Yeah.
Right up front. You may own a home, but that house might not sell in a day. It may not sell in 6 months. We don't know what the housing market's going to look like at the time that you need it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of go down that path. Let's say I decide I want this certain level of care and I've got insurance in place to make sure that I can address that. But then, one of my kiddos decides, no, mom, dad, you need to live with me and we don't need that. And then, I don't know, 10 years later, I get ran over by a bus and we never touch that policy. Is that just money down the drain?
So it used to be a situation where traditional long-term care policies were very much the use it or lose it situation, more like your car insurances, where I pay for this insurance to be in place, but if nothing happens, I'm happy that nothing happened, but I also lost my money.
Yeah.
Now there are different hybrid insurance policies in place where you can utilize that money for beneficiaries, you can utilize it for other purposes, or you may decide that you want to go ahead and close it out and use the money to go on a vacation. You don't necessarily just set it aside and use it or lose it anymore.
Gotcha. So it's just one more piece of that entire retirement plan from the day you leave the workforce through Medicare, years for your health where you're going and you're doing, and you just need the health insurance. And then that's then that long-term care is where you're slowing down. And then the estate plans where you stop, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. It really goes into that older piece of life that we know that we have Medicare currently in place. There's a lot of great options. But if something happens that we need that extended care, we want to make sure that is in place. There's not a gap in the roof. We don't have missing shingles. We just know that we've taken care of everything from A to Z on the life for the client.
Awesome. So now I can just go out and Google this and find on a website, oh, they sell long-term care. That's end of story, right?
There are tons of different resources out there for that. Obviously, your people who are going to focus more on long-term care and the education can be a little harder to find. But yes, they can come to our website and look at it. We have workshops that we do to help, but there's a plethora of information from the government, from independent nonprofits, but really you're just looking for somebody who is going to show you all of your options and not just look at one specific thing and say, hey, this is what you want, and go.
Right. You're really wanting to sit down with somebody who has studied this, talks about this all day long, every day, versus what you can just go find out on your own on some random website trying to wing this all by yourself, right?
Absolutely. You want somebody who's going to specialize in it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, 7 in 10 people that reach age 65 will need long-term care at some point in their life. Wow. Do you have a plan in place for that? At Market Advisor Group, we can help you figure one out. And sometimes all it takes is a 15-minute phone call to find that right path to start going down. And if you'd like to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisor Group team. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking with financial advisor Julie Newton in Kansas City. And we'll be right back after this. And welcome back into Retire Hour. And now we've got Julie Newton calling in from Kansas City. Now, Julie, you've got a couple clients that are kind of stuck at a railroad crossing, right?
Yeah, they are. I'm sorry, I couldn't help that. My dad was a railroader for all my life. So, I just couldn't help myself. But, there's so many things when it comes to retirement that you just don't know are going to create some kind of havoc for you. So this couple that I met with recently, super nice couple. He's about 10 years older than she is. He's a railroader, worked for the railroad for many, many years, and he's getting ready to retire. Anyone who's worked for the railroad knows that there is railroad pension benefit involved here. But the thing about railroad retirement is that it makes you not eligible for Social Security benefit or for a reduced amount of Social Security benefit. And so, at the front, that seems like an okay kind of deal. Like most pensions, the railroad retirement allows you to leave pension benefits behind for your spouse. So it seems like it ought to be pretty cut and dry. But unfortunately, in a situation where there's a spouse, as in this case, that's about 10 years younger. There's some health issues with the husband. There's all kinds of things that come into play here. And Larry said in his segment that Social Security is where we start planning first when it comes to that income piece of retirement. But in this situation, Social Security isn't there for them because of that railroad benefit. So figuring out how do we navigate that is a really big deal for folks.
Yeah, people like to get that income, as long as they're still walking the earth, they're going to want that income. Crazy fact there. And so how does that work as you try to work with them to navigate through that?
So first things first is we have to figure out what kind of benefit can be left behind for the spouse. That's typical with pensions, but in this particular situation, the spouse will only get 50% of the railroad benefit. Additionally, once she takes that railroad benefit, she gets a reduced or perhaps no Social Security. So in some manner, she becomes the railroad employee and her benefit, her Social Security benefit is reduced. So think about that. Your spouse passes away. You lose 50% of your income. You potentially lose a lot more than that if your Social Security, if you were drawing it and that goes away or however all that works for you. Additionally, you're now a single tax filer and your expenses didn't change. You still got all the same expenses that you had before. So in a situation like this, it's a matter of, first of all, what are your expenses going to be? And how are you going to pay those expenses if there's only one spouse? And then, of course, as you know, what is that tax piece? Because you, Josh, you can really speak to the differences between married filing jointly and single taxpayers, right?
Yeah, that's kind of one of those things I do. And I'll be totally honest. This is one of the conversations I hate having the most because it's, I mean, it's just a terrible topic to bring up, and it's even worse when we have to bring it up after that first spouse has passed. So then we have to start talking about now, I mean, in this situation, we're talking about railroad, but even just if it's regular old Social Security, it's not a terribly different conversation. You're going to lose the smaller of the two, Social Security or railroad retirement checks, right? The assets will transfer over. So if there's any kind of IRAs, nest egg going on, that all transfers over. But then those required distributions keep clicking along. If there's pension survivorship, like you were talking about, that's going to translate over. And so your income doesn't, or it may not significantly drop when that first spouse passes. But I'll be honest, it's just a real kick in the teeth, is that when you go from that joint filing to that single filing, all of your tax brackets get cut in half, your standard deduction gets cut in half. So a lot of people who are widowed or newly widowed will see their taxes jump up a tax bracket, even though they had no material change in their life, except for the devastating impact of having that spouse pass away. And so it's no fun to talk about it, but when there's two people in front of you, when you're having to talk to that surviving spouse about this, it is not a pleasant conversation.
No, it isn't. And that's one of the things that is really hard for people. People are shocked when you tell them this. We have certain assumptions about how our income, whether it's pension or Social Security, is going to work in retirement. And then when you show folks, okay, this is what's going to happen, you're going to lose this piece of your income. Oh, by the way, you're going to pay more in taxes. It's devastating for people. So here you are, you've newly lost your spouse, you're going through the emotional piece of that. And now all of a sudden, what are you going to do about your income? What are you going to do about your taxes? You need somebody who can help you plan for that. Because if you're waiting till that moment that it happens and you're in that emotional distressed position, it's really, really hard to try to figure things out and navigate through that. It can have some pretty financial devastating effects.
Yeah, you are absolutely right there. And not to kind of jump ahead in the conversation, but this is a reason we often talk to people about doing Roth conversions out of their retirement nest egg, is to get money, have the taxes dealt with on a chunk of money, so that when this awful thing does happen, and it's going to happen one day to every married couple, at least you've got a piece of money that the taxes are all dealt with. So when you need to tap that for your cash flow, it's good to go. And everyone out there listening, this is why it takes a team working together. These things can fall through the cracks if you weren't careful. If you don't have a team working together for you, just reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisor Group team. Well, stay tuned. And when we come back, we'll be talking with Trey Bassa from our healthcare team about working with the Market Medicare Advisors. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour. This is the part of the show where we discuss some of the other aspects of retirement, like healthcare, estate planning, and taxes. With me in studio now, I've got Trey Bassa, health insurance advisor with Market Medicare Advisors. Trey, today we're talking about how things are paid for on Medicare Advantage plans, right?
Right. The number one question we get about Medicare Advantage plans is just, how are they paid for? Why are the benefits so good and my costs so little? Probably the number one thing I have to debunk in all of our meetings, workshops, things like that. Medicare Advantage plans do promise little to no monthly premiums to be a part of the plan, but a lot of people forget you still have to have parts A and B. That's the premiums associated with it this as well. This year, Part B is $185 a month, just as a base premium. But whenever you're on an Advantage plan, you agree to a network of doctors, you agree to co-payments for those services. By managing your plan, staying in that network, you only pay for services that you get rendered. At the end of the day, people aren't signing up for Medicare Advantage plans planning to use it. They accept a lot of risk. And when they do that, they can manage their plan and save a good chunk of money. But the question is, how is everything paid for?
Good question.
It's a good question. A lot of people ask because they don't understand just the Medicare system as a whole. So when you're on just parts A and B, Part B is for everything outpatient, and that's usually an 80-20 split. The government, the Medicare program, is paying for 80% of any of those outpatient bills. So we're talking surgery at an outpatient center or blood work, x-rays, exams, things like that. And you're responsible for 20%. But when you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, the Advantage plan takes care of all of those costs and splits the cost with you directly. Not 20%, but now a flat copayment. So the government's not spending any money anymore. What happens? The government pays the private insurance company to assume 100% responsibility for you. When you agree to a Medicare Advantage plan, you agree to these copayments, these rates to pay for those services. At the same time, Medicare Advantage plan is in a contract with a doctor or hospital facility for a contracted rate for those services. So they know for the calendar year how much things are going to cost and what the split of that cost is going to be. The trouble comes from the network. People sign up for Medicare Advantage plans for all of this, that, and the other benefits, low copayments, all of that fun stuff, but they don't manage it correctly. They don't stay in network. And that's when it can run up and then cost the individual more money.
All right. So first of all, let me just be upfront. You're the Medicare expert. I'm the Medicare neophyte, right? I don't know nothing. So what you're saying is that when you're on the Advantage plan, it's important to have that conversation with whoever you're working with when you sign up to see what exactly is going to be a permitted provider, right? Who your network is and who your network isn't.
Having that conversation and figuring out who's going to be in that network is really important for us and our clients. When we sit down, we don't sign them up and kick them out the door. We're not trying to get them to sign up for any one particular policy. We're making sure they understand what their options are, what they're signing up for, and that it's going to be a good fit for them. And you'd be surprised. We hear a lot of second, third-hand stories where people have really bad experiences with Medicare Advantage plans. And those are completely valid experiences. But I also see that they come from mismanaging the plan. They got out of network just one time, and then that ran up hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in medical hospital bills.
So let me make sure I kind of understand this. So not every plan is right for every person, right? It depends on your facts and circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
From what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that the Advantage plan is probably somebody who is early in their retirement. They're relatively healthy, so they anticipate few planned medical needs, right?
That's the hard part, is fewer planned medical needs.
Right. Surprises always happen, but that's typically the person who would sign up for an Advantage plan.
Yes.
And then what's going to happen is they just keep renewing it year after year. And 1 year, if they're not paying attention, they're probably going to get clobbered because they've transitioned into a phase of life where they're going to need more medical, they'll have more medical needs, and they'll be in that Advantage plan at the wrong time.
Yeah, just the wrong stage in life.
Yep.
Whenever people are signing up for Medicare bits and bobs, they're getting ready for Medicare and retirement as a whole. I have to sit down with a client and get to know them, get to understand them and their circumstances, and make sure I understand what kind of confidence level that they have in their health. If they have a high confidence level and they can accept a little bit of risk, say with a Medicare Advantage plan and networks and copayments, I can give them something that's going to benefit them the first stint of their retirement. But like you said, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. There's a lot of different plans, a lot of different companies out there. It's important to review these things every year. And I'll hammer home this date every single time. October 15th through December 7th, the annual enrollment period. It has not changed ever. And that is the time period for people to sit down with a professional and review their policies to make sure it is still going to be a good fit for them.
That's a good point because plans can change from year to year, right?
They change benefits, they change co-payments, and Heck, even doctors, insurance companies, they change networks. And 1 year, if you're just riding along with this one plan, 1 year, your doctor could be out of network and you can get clobbered.
So at the end of the day, your prescription for people signing up for Medicare, traditional or Advantage, sit down and have a conversation with somebody who spends all day, every day, understanding how these plans work, what does work, what doesn't work, and what people fit in what places.
Precisely. And I think like a lot of advisors here can relate to this. We meet a lot of do-it-yourselfers, people who have been writing out this plan for a while, and then all of a sudden that bad year just hits them. They need to talk to somebody. They give us a call. We sit down and have a little chat, a little review about their policies, because it's important to have a professional on your side to talk about these things.
With the new administration, there are almost certainly big changes coming to the Medicare system. If you don't have someone there to walk through those changes, it might be time to reach out. Sometimes all it takes is a 15-minute call to see what you might be missing in your retirement plans. And if you'd like to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisor Group team. Well, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking to Gerald Eidelman about estate plans, and we'll be right back. And welcome back into Retire Hour. With me in studio, I've got Gerald Eidelman, founder of Eidelman Law Firm.
Hello.
Gerald, we've got a listener question for you this week from Richard B. Richard asks, how do I set up a will? Can I do it myself? Gerald, what advice do you have for Richard?
Well, let me answer his question and then go on to a little more. The question is, yes, setting up a will is not complicated, but doing it yourself is. And when I mean doing yourself is you trying to go out. I know people who do this, go out, get in the internet. You think you can find anything and everything, and they draft their own wills. I just ran into this very recently where the couple had done that with their wills. So you can't do it. The question is, will it be done correctly? And in the case, there wasn't. They thought, based on what they read and what they understood, is that a will just needed a notarization or witnessing. So they had done the will several years ago, and they felt they were safe and everything was right, but there were no witnesses in this will.
Ooh.
So what they had was just a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so while anybody can do their own will in the sense of, I don't question people's capacity to be able to perform the task. The key is, well, do I have enough information? Have I followed all the requirements and rules? Because some of these rules are not evident, just like there wasn't for this couple. They saw there were witness signatures, they saw there was notarization, they figured notarization or witness was the same thing. They didn't have any advice to guide them through. There are, online services that allow you to do a will. How good they are, it depends on which one it is. And there's also difficulties on there. Because the one thing you're missing is not how you can do a will, but do you need a will? What are you trying to accomplish? What is it that you're trying to pass on to your heirs? This is something that a computer program can't ask you these questions. They can't interact with you in a way that I, as the computer, can learn your complete situation. That's why meeting one-on-one with a professional who can talk to you and discuss different options is the way to go. Because what many people don't realize is that having a will has a lot of downside. Because if you have a will, that means that everything you own is going to pass through a will. A will is a document that must be filed with the court and becomes part of the public record, so everybody knows your business. And the process can take, anywhere from 6 months to a year. And I know some other cases that I had that last 2 or 3 years to finish up. All that time, the money's sitting in the state and it's not being distributed, and so your heirs are not getting the benefit of it. And so the question is, at that point, is it worth it to have that will to accomplish what you're trying to do, which is benefit your heirs? Another part of working with a will is that the probate process costs a lot of money. I just went through one case where the party on the other side, they were arguing over peanuts. Well, it wasn't peanuts, it was $50,000. And they fought so much so that this one child wouldn't get it, that one side of the fight spent $43,000 in legal fees to fight giving $50,000 to the other side. So costs can be really ludicrous sometimes when you have to go through probate. So a better question is, what am I trying to accomplish and what do I have? I mean, in some cases, let's say you only have a house and you have your retirement accounts. Well, those don't need to pass through a will. Why go through probate? You have transfer on death deeds that can transfer the property. Your retirement accounts have beneficiary designations. You can use those as well as having a will as a precaution, but you can use those to transfer your assets to your children, avoiding all the whole probate process.
So it's a little bit like doing a home improvement project, right? And, so if your will is like a screwdriver, well, can you use that to hammer a nail in? Well, you can. It's not going to work really well. You might hurt yourself in the process. It could be done, but you could also just pick up the hammer sitting right next to it, which is maybe a trust or something else that would accomplish what you're wanting to do it more effectively, and give you a better outcome.
Absolutely. People should know that, a will is not the only way to dispose of their property, that there's many avenues. Some of them are more expensive, some of them are less expensive, like the transfer on death deed. But all of them, in my opinion, are better than going through probate.
Right. Because even if the will costs, or the trust costs you a couple thousand more than the will, well, in that example you just gave, that's still not that $43,000.
That's right. That's exactly go through right.
Probate.
And usually I would argue that a trust estate plan will cost a lot less than going through probate in 9 times out of 10.
Right, and that probate's the only way the will actually gets used. If you don't do the probate process,
the will's
just a piece of paper.
Yeah, and here's a little bit of information that people may not know for if they are faced with a loved one who's recently died. A will is only good for 6 months after the date of death. If that will goes beyond 6 months, it's like it was never written. It's invalid, and you can't use it. And then whatever specific distributions they might have had in that will go away. And then you're left with state mandates or statutes that tells you how the money is to be distributed.
And that's a terrible plan.
It is, because it might be completely different from what you're trying to accomplish.
While you might be able to set some of these things up yourself, some things are best just left to the professional who does this day in and day out. You don't want to leave anything to chance with your estate, especially because you won't be there to fix those issues as they pop up. If you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call just to talk to us about what you might need or what might be missing from your retirement plan, reach out to us right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There, you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisory Group team. Well, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll turn to taxes with Robert Carr. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour. Now, to round out today's show, I've got Robert Carr in studio with me to talk about taxes. So we were talking a little bit about before the show, and you had talked about how someone was asking you about a self-directed IRA.
Yeah. Self-directed IRAs are very similar to normal IRAs. They're qualified retirement plans, just like any other IRA, but they're more flexible. Allows you to invest in other items that you wouldn't normally be able to invest in through a traditional IRA. And when I say traditional, I'm not talking traditional versus Roth, but just a typical IRA. A self-directed IRA, you can invest in real estate. You can invest in closely held corporate stock, precious metals, other items like that that are not easily marketable. The biggest challenge with self-directed IRAs is, well, they have some requirements that have to be done every year. A fair market value has to be asserted, and your custodian that handles your IRA does that for you automatically. Well, self-directed IRAs, they don't necessarily do that. So your custodian might not do that for you. So they may put that on you to go out and determine that fair market value. And if you don't do that, there could be situations where your custodian just distributes the IRA out to you because you didn't follow the rules that you were supposed to do. Yeah.
You know, people like to complain about required distributions and having to take that money every year and then having to deal with the taxes on that.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how much of a problem it would be if you're not required distribution, but the distribution you were forced to take was your entire nest egg.
Yes, exactly. And I actually had a client that happened to, and we've had to go back to them and go, look, the investment, there was nothing for me to do a fair market value on because it went up. You know, he invested in some rare earth mining operation and didn't get the fair market value. Well, it went under. And so its value is zero, but there's no way to prove it. And so they distributed $170,000 of income to him, and the IRS says, you got to pay on this. And so we're like, well, time out. we got to figure out something, and how do we go back and fix this? But other issues, with real estate, it's a very, in the last 5 years, real estate has gone up tremendously. And, I had a client actually several years ago bought a house out in California for just under $1 million, around 900 and something. And he's seen it go up over $3 million at this point. Well, he's hitting RMD age.
Oof.
And so, he's renting it out, and it's producing $50,000 in net income every year, which is amazing for rent. But his RMD is $120,000 a year. Oh, no. So he can't even afford his RMD. So we were talking about options for him to get cash out. Well, an IRA, can't take a mortgage out on the property. Well, you can. You just can't sign off that you're going to cover it personally.
Yeah.
So you got to take out a non-recourse loan, which has a higher interest rate and has other things that the banks don't really want to deal with.
Right. I had a client who had the exact opposite situation. So they went to some seminar about putting real estate in your nest egg, and so they thought it was a great idea. Put his whole nest egg into this property up in Niagara Falls. And this was back, it had been probably a while back, and through a series of poor property managers and bad renters, there was no liquidity in that property when he had to start taking those required distributions. So he had to start taking money out. There was no cash to take out. He needed repairs to get a renter to get the liquidity, but then we had to go back to that non-recourse financing. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, mine was basically, here's your options. You can sell the property or go get a loan, and you're going to have that 120,000 or more every year because that value is probably going to go up. And this was pre-2020. So we're talking another, maybe 5 million or more. So he ended up selling it because he just couldn't afford even that, penalties on not taking your full RMD. At that rate too.
That's expensive. Yeah. That's expensive. It's tax season now. And if you're someone who's been listening for a long time and still are working with us, now is the perfect time. You could just get your taxes done to see if we might be a good fit for you. And to make an appointment, just reach out to us now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that appointment with the Market Tax Services team. Well, now that's all the time we have for this week. I'm Joshua Cicora, thanking you for tuning in to Retire Hour, and we'll see you next week.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.